Welcome to Solo Journeys podcast, where every journey begins with a single step. Today I'm talking to Natalie, who has a diagnosed ADHD, a neurodivergent condition that rewires how the brain experiences the world. ADHD can be thrilling, creative, and intensely powerful, but it can also spiral into chaos if ignored. Stay tuned to the end because Natalie shares the hard truth, hidden superpowers, and life-changing strategies that can support your life. So what is ADHD?
So ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, right? So it's one of the neurodivergent, let's say, brain disorders, as they like to say, right? In regards to neurotypical, it's a different way that your brain works. Now, ADHD is just one form of neurodivergency. We can then also extend it to other things like autism spectrum. And then if we go a little bit even further into it, it can be also people who do have like Tourette syndrome, where they have their tics, all the way to other things, even if you're dyslexic. Now, this term neurodivergency versus neurotypical basically means that your brain, the way it's wired, it just fires off in a different way than people are comfortable with in a very neurotypical world.
Is ADHD something one is born with, or can it develop over time?
It's a difficult thing to say whether it's nature versus nurture. You know, I do think there can be certain tendencies. Also, when I had spoken to my psychologist 10 years ago, when I was actually going for grief counseling, when somebody really close to me died, that's how this whole diagnosis even came about, was that it can be in the biological mother's womb, like a lot of stress hormones. On the other hand, it can also be certain events in life. Certain parents might have it as well. Sometimes that there are certain under pressure situations as you're growing up or later that causes the brain then to kind of fire off in a different way. So there are like different schools of thoughts if it's really that you're born with, or if it's something that's developed out of a certain stimulus or a certain way that you have grown up, or even a bit later. It can show up at any time.
In what age were you diagnosed?
Oh, diagnosed. I was only diagnosed about 10 years ago when I was 42.
So what are the symptoms? What are the biggest challenges in your life with ADHD?
Mm-hmm. You know, those things that come so easy to neurotypical people, like routines, you know, staying in school, being really quiet, being able to not have these impulses and not to get bored so quickly. Just to be really in line and pay your bills on time and keeping your home in order. I used to feel really guilty about it. There were like a lot of other things that came with me not understanding my brain the way it really, really worked. So not every ADHD person or ADD person will have the same symptoms, right? So in my case, I didn't actually have that much hyperactivity. I learned how to read in 2 languages by the age of like maybe I think 4.5. Wow. So I was, I mean, it's great, right? So
it's a superpower.
Well, yes and no. So I was exposed to the world and to words and which was the greatest thing my parents could do, because I could, I would get these puzzle books and everything. And, I'm an only child, so I was able to always play by myself and keep myself occupied with a lot of reading, and then my parents would engage with me and stuff. School was a different matter, because I would be required to sit there and my mind would be constantly wanting information. I would always ask, why is this and why is that? And I would never really get the answers, because they would think that I would be questioning their authority, right? That's one really big symptom, that your brain, even as a child, is going to be working differently. It looks for stimulus.
Searching for stimulus.
Yeah.
Could you give an example and maybe we can understand it better?
But for example, let's say you're in a history class and there's one person talking and it's very non-interactive, and you're like looking at the teacher and they're just doing whatever they're doing. So your mind starts drifting because you're bored.
You're easily bored or quickly bored?
Yes, because there's not enough activity happening. It's just forced to listen to one person talk, explain, sometimes in really non-interactive ways. No little films, no little examples, no games, no nothing. So the ADD mind or ADHD mind is probably always looking for some sort of like playful inspiration. It has to do a lot, yes, with the fact that we have less dopamine.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So basically you need a different approach for education.
Yes, but when it comes to ADD or ADHD, the normal conservative traditional ways of teaching, trying to get people to study, it absolutely does not work for most ADHD mind, especially the ones who are not medicated. It's not going to work. It doesn't work. Hence why, probably you've heard it, like my parents would come to these parent-teachers meetings, and there'd be a lot of complaints from my teachers, like, Natalie, you know, done the test, she's really smart, but she's just not paying attention. She's just not able to sit down and just do her work. She has it's always this effing, so much potential, so much intelligence, but she cannot apply it. And she's always so undisciplined. They're also chatting and distracted. Yeah, okay, now we know why, right? We acquire information on a very, very different level. To study for our certificate of advanced studies, right? So while the teacher was talking, I actually was doing 3 things at the same time so I could pay attention to the teacher. Luckily, we're now at a level where the teachers understood what ADHD and ADD is. So I had like my notebook open, taking notes, and at the same time, I was playing Candy Crush and ordering groceries. I passed, right? So I was doing these 3 things at the same time, or maybe looking at my horoscope or an online something, so that I could actually listen and absorb and then take the notes and then do those things, so that when my mind drifts, I wouldn't like not pay attention.
To focus, you need some extra activities. You need additional activities. That's really...
Because otherwise I get bored. Yeah, I can't
That's
listen
so
to somebody 8 hours or 3 hours in a lecture. To put me in a classroom situation is very difficult. I've just learned now as an adult, impulse control has been a really big thing that I've had to learn throughout all these years. So that when I have the impulse, like to just stand up and walk outside and have a cup of coffee, I don't. But then I really need to have these other activities, because otherwise I'll get sleepy or I'll get very, very anxious, because I have this restlessness inside me, because my brain is just looking for dopamine, you know? And I don't release dopamine when I'm just listening to a talk per se. So I try to find my own dopamine, which is the Candy Crush, which is that while I'm listening, I'm writing notes and like drawing stuff.
So basically you mastered it. Coming back to my question, and this is your biggest challenge.
Well, it wasn't just, but there were bigger challenges that is not talked about openly. And this is why I'm also writing this book, Alcohol Doesn't Help, Damn It. Studies have shown almost 43% of people with ADHD have a tendency, a very, very higher tendency to have alcohol, substance abuse disorders, as well as severe depressions and anxieties. Okay?
Why?
Because of the dopamine, lack of dopamine. The very first time I touched alcohol, I was 15 years old. First bottle of wine was completely shit-faced. I was more hooked to how it made me feel in regards to dopamine, and also because it was a depressant. And you know, I've been completely sober for 5 years now. It is a well-known fact that ADHD people, ADD, neurodivergency in that region, self-medicate. And what you self-medicate is this feeling of extreme restlessness, anxiety, this hyperstimulation of your senses. Everything's so loud, emotional pain that feels stronger somehow. It's that dopamine thing. You're always looking for roller coasters. I've had some seriously toxic relationships with the people who are similar and maybe even worse than I have. I've lost money. I've had severe depressions. Alcohol just makes it worse. I've had crashes in my life you cannot imagine. I've always brought it back up, you know, because that's the superpower of ADHD. You can always. But then, yeah, I also met with my fiancé who had a similar history. And in order for this relationship to work, we both had to make a decision. It's all or nothing. And he also needed that kick in the ass, and he gave it to himself and we gave it to each other. And I guess the good thing about ADHD is you do go all or nothing, all down or all up, but there's never this in between. And you know, the self-medication is basically a way to find that inner peace within and without. Sobriety, when you have ADHD and ADD, afterwards, it's very, very different than when you are neurotypical. Because we don't wake up in the morning, or at least especially in the first few years, and then we have this, you know, we see the light of God. We feel absolutely freaking miserable because there's no dopamine. So every day we need to, and I say we because he and I are doing it at the same time, right? But also I make a conscious decision to be 100% sober, to not seek roller coaster behavior, completely have changed my lifestyle. And to be really honest, what I've learned or been teaching myself is to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable, to feel comfortable with very painful emotions, to feel comfortable with anxiety, and then to find ways. That's in my case, I try to do this yoga nidra where I'm feeling my body, etc. and so forth. I try a more spiritual approach as well to it, but also, with my breath to be able to calm down my parasympathetic nervous system. Because what happens with ADHD especially is my nervous system is always hyperstimulated. I'm always on a fight or flight mode. So if we had a big disaster going around us, I can basically disassociate and function, But for your health, it's really not good, like the adrenaline, the cortisol. And as a human being, you need to be able to learn how to live with it and not self-medicate.
How do you do this when you want to...
To calm down the parasympathetic nervous system?
Yes, how exactly? It's quite,
I know.
quite a word.
It's the central nervous system.
So how do you do?
I do have issues with calming it down. I'll be honest. This is probably also why I have a thyroid. I have a hyperactive thyroid. I have to work very, very, very hard to be calm. So what I do is either I really do try to put myself in the company of animals. For some reason, animals open up something in me where I have direct access to unconditional love. My whole life, I've tried to, whenever I could, help animals as well. I see them as my friends, not like with emotions, souls, and everything. And what I do is also I game, PlayStation, action RPGs. I go in such a state of relaxedness that actually my Apple Watch will think that I'm sleeping. It's a phenomenon. I don't know why it's done.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know.
The gaming.
But also there, like I will have these moments where, okay, after I've done everything, I will, do my PlayStation and go completely in this, and I feel completely relaxed. Because especially the games that I'm playing, I play stuff like Path of Exile and Diablo 4. There's so much happening on the screen that for the ADHD brain, it's wonderful. There's so much happening. Remember, I need a lot of brain
And this makes
stimulus.
you relaxed.
I'm so relaxed.
I'm wondering, how do you take walks in the woods?
I don't. I don't.
We are really different. What ADHD gifted you with?
Focus. I can hyper-focus for 72 hours. I can lock myself in my home. As long as I'm interested in what I'm doing, this is the thing, because my time management used to be really bad during school time, so I would have to study like 1 or 2 days beforehand, everything that we had studied for 6 months. That's a superpower, but it's a very stressful one. And it has everything to do with being able to hyper-focus to the point that is not normal. But it gets shit done. But I always had a double life, So I'd have that life where I'd be like earning my money in very respectable jobs. But then I was also a rock metal singer, where I was making music, writing music on stage. And suddenly it'd be like 5 a.m. That's when I worked the next day and just like recover. I had all this energy and sleep for like 2 hours. And the neurodivergent brain can do that. It's quite damaging. And then my dopamine, whatever was left of it, would crash so much. But you keep on doing it. And again, I don't think I was so much addicted to the drinking, but it was the way it could shut down my world, the way it could...
Otherwise you couldn't.
It would just quieten down my mind and my world outside, It would like, if I was if everything outside was like on 3,000 decibels, alcohol would allow me to turn it down to 350 decibels. Everything would be more in slow motion. Have conversations with people on their level. The problem is energy attracts energy, right? And so I would also come in contact with people who are very much like that. And that is just like an atom bomb in your life.
In terms of raising awareness about ADHD people and maybe not special, just different, let's say.
Different, yeah.
Setup of the brain, what could you share with people out there?
Number one, it's counterproductive if you tell somebody, oh, you just got to try harder, you just got to focus harder, you just have to...
It doesn't work.
Harder. It doesn't work because every day, especially the ones who are either in treatment or medication or very self-aware with their impulses, we try every day to be successful within our own lives. Underline, within our own lives. That's the first thing.
Number two?
Number two, not everybody has ADHD. Not being able to focus in a boring subject is not a symptom that you have ADHD. Well, okay, the number three would be neurotypicals in regards to in regards to ADHD and substance and addiction. I think this is something that has to be fully addressed. Question here, or the answer here from the, well, when they say it is not, oh, you just have to drink less. We can't. We want to.
Thank you very much for your openness and also for your spirit to share it and maybe even to change somebody's life. Either with ADHD or with a person who is dealing with a person with ADHD.
Thank you very, very much for having me. It's been an absolute delight to be able to share, well, just my journey through this. And yeah, I do hope, well, it's been shedding a bit more light on your side for any questions you've ever wondered. And I hope that, that some people can listen to it and they can relate to it. It might be able to help a few souls just navigate better through this very nice, spicy, neurospicy minds.
So what have I learned in today's episode? ADHD is definitely not about laziness or lack of potential. It's about learning to understand your mind, embrace your superpowers, and develop coping strategies. Natalie has shown incredible resilience through her own solo journey and is now working on her blog to support others facing similar challenges. You can connect with her and learn more at neurodivergent.com. If this episode was helpful, please share your opinion in the comment section. Thank you.